the first part as quick as we can, so I'd like to get call Dave there to pray over the please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to know that I called your name this weekend. I called it to the Lord because I pray for you daily. I came in early this morning, and I hope this is not offensive to anyone, but I took some anointing oil from Jerusalem that had been sent to me, and this little thing, and I went around the room, and on the back of your chair, I just prayed for you and anointed you. So you're entitled to at least that. I'd like to ask before we pray that we stand and do the pledge of allegiance to the flag, where maybe we're a couple of days behind the 4th of July, but that's okay. We should do this every day. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you don't mind, would you remain standing for the prayer? Father, I thank you for Brown County. I thank you for the men and women that you have given us, Lord God, that make daily decisions about people in this county, Lord. Father, I pray that you bless them, that you would give them wisdom, that you would bless their families, Lord God. And Father, we thank you that we live in a county like Brown County. Now may the Lord bless you and keep you, cause his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. God bless you.
Yes, sir.
All right, item number 3 is citizens' comments. If we have any citizens that have comments, none have signed up to speak. Item number 4, consideration approval of minutes from June 22nd, 2020.
Make a motion to approve minutes.
A motion?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion approved. Minutes are approved. Item number 5, consideration of the treasurer auditor reports. Wayne, can you tell us anything?
I think we need to put that off to the end, I think. It's probably really good.
Probably a good idea. Item number 6, consideration approval payment of bills. You have the bills in front of you.
That's what I mean.
Oh, put that off? Okay, I'm
Bills
sorry.
off.
I thought you meant the one I was just talking about. We can do that. All right, let's table item number 6 to the end. So start by it, so I won't forget. We'll go to item number 7, consideration approval of all appropriate regarding the following. And this is our, what we commonly call the consent agenda, but we use each item individually. First, item number 7A, District Judge Stephen Ellis, presentation, discussion, possible action regarding contracts between Brown County and Howard Payne University and any other entity and action deemed appropriate and necessary for the safe and efficient operation of the criminal justice system in Brown County. Judge?
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, Judge Ellis.
Pleasure. So I can speak to you, I think it's odd. That is one of the exemptions, by the way, the governor's latest order. If you're speaking publicly, you can take it off, as long as, I guess, we're 6 feet apart. This is close enough for government work. So let me tell you all where we are with this proposal. And each of you were sent an email by me last week. On Friday, I think that was the latest version. I may have gotten your email wrong as I was typing it. I'm not very good at that. But I did the best I could, but hopefully all of you got it. I appreciate, in particular, Commissioner Worley has responded when Shane had responded to him, and then I revised it after talking with the Howard Payne representative. And so there's not any problems with it that I know of. No one has voiced any other concerns other than what Mr. Britton mentioned in the email. Each of you should have copied that. I can go into that if you need me to. I don't want to belabor things that you don't need. But the upshot of this, to kind of recap and go back around briefly, is because of the coronavirus pandemic, we have been prohibited from having any in-person jury trials since March. That is still in place. It's been revised somewhat. There are only a handful of courts throughout the state that have been permitted by the Supreme Court under the direction of the Office of Court Administration after they follow the Supreme Court guidelines and you get the approval of the Office of Court Administration and the regional judges to go forward. So there's a handful of jury trials that have been authorized in the state to be used as a learning and as well as a way of going forward to protect the public, so we can see that the cases can move forward. Without the jury trials being viable, we're unable to move the majority of the really tough cases. The hard cases, the criminal and the civil docket, those that are unable to be settled, absent, human nature, and you got a deadline, you're going to trial, that's when the deals get made, if there is any deals to be had. We've not been able to have any jury trials because of the pandemic, and yet we've now been authorized to have one on the 27th of July of this year, so long as we follow all of the things that we've already put in place. You all have been involved with our plan that we've adopted. You know what that plan is. It's been furnished to you. Several of you participated in that. That's been approved by the Supreme Court and the Office of Court Administration. So that's how we do court right now here. Most of the time it's Zoom hearings, so we're doing it remotely if at all possible. Sometimes you've got to do it in person, and because of the nature of the case, and we're doing that in a very refined way so as to not endanger anyone if at all possible. I know the county has recently hired the cleaning folks, and I'm glad to see them working to supplement in the disinfecting aspects. Our sheriff's office has done a great job with our screening, the questions that have to be asked, the temperatures taken, on and on and on. You know what we got to do. We'll have to do the same thing for a jury trial to keep people safe, but it'll be a bigger group. And now, this is all subject to what happens on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, if there is a huge spike here in Brown County, and certainly things have increased over what they were, but it's not a huge spike at this point. We've not been told that we cannot go forward as long as we do all the things to keep people safe. And that could change. But right now, what I'm asking you to do is to help us to go forward with a plan. Because hope's not a plan. We got to have a plan to have this thing work at all. And so, as you know, when we last addressed each other a few weeks back, I talked to you about proposals, places, venues, and I want you to know that every place we went to inspect, we had kind of a traveling road show with court personnel, clerks, prosecutors, sheriff's deputies, my staff, and others that went to 3 locations in town that have been suggested. The Lyric Theater, Eric Evans and the folks there were just very gracious, and it had a lot of pros. It also had some cons in terms of the potential for our use. Great facility, great people, and you heard that, I think mentioned earlier. I believe Mayor Haynes had even suggested that, some of you may have been aware of it. And so that location was evaluated, lots of pluses, some negatives. Then we also met with the Coliseum folks. The people there were great, as always. They had several things scheduled on the books, and they had more conflicts with settings than did the Lyric at this point for the times that we would need it. I was looking at the Mondays for jury selection between now and the end of the year. And also then we had to implement the change for the grand jury. We suspended the change of the grand jury to keep our current grand jury in session and in place through the end of August, so we wouldn't have to bring another large group of people in during this time, and that was permitted. I requested it, the regional judge approved it, and so our current grand jury is still meeting. They're using the district courtroom to meet, instead of upstairs, to be able to spread out, have the social distancing, wear the masks, all the 9 yards that are done. They've met in the last few weeks. They did not meet several months, from March and April, and I think May. We suspended the grand jury meeting in person, but in June, and maybe at the end of May, the dates that escape me, these days are all upside down. But I know we've had 2 grand jury sessions where there have been roughly 80 indictments apiece. So they're making up for not meeting for a while. No, that group will still meet through August. So we'll be impaneling a new grand jury effective September to go till the end of the year. And so that is another thing we'll have to have people on. Smaller group, but still impaneling. Now, to bring a group of people together, we have to meet all of those guidelines, because this is not people voluntarily gathering. This is people summoned to come. And so we don't want anybody we have altered our jury summonses to include all of the information for the public and how to request if they feel like they're in the vulnerable population, how to get off, and so forth. So we're going to do all we can to protect our public, number one, and we're not going to go forward with whatever you guys agree here today in terms of contracts. Hopefully you will approve it, but we're not going to do anything, even if the contract's in place, that's going to put people at risk. So this is just a plan and an agreement, and Howard Payne is the one we've chosen to do this with, because although those other locations were very good and pros and cons, the men's auditorium was the best for us. And it was a consensus, unanimous agreement of all the folks that were in our group that were doing the visits to see what would be best for our needs. And they're very accommodating. And of course, their students have been by and large gone for the summer, and so they greeted us with open arms, and even into the fall. And I hope they're going to be back up to speed, but we don't ever know. But the dates that I'm talking about on the Mondays are agreeable with them, because they won't need the men's for those Mondays. So you'll see the dates. Each of you got, I sent you by email. I didn't print enough for everybody. I've got a few extra printed copies. If you need me to, I'll share them with you now. Who did not read the email, or who doesn't have a copy? Okay, I didn't send Sharon one earlier because I was just a commissioner. So I sent, the rest of you all have yours? Okay. It's the same one that I sent last. It was a revision that Shane had suggested. I talked with the Vice President of Finance at Howard Payne and told him what the suggestion was. He was fine with that. It was not his intent to do any kind of gotcha deal where the county's having to pay anything that we don't have to pay. He was wanting to make it easier for us to move forward. So that's been revised. And I've included language in here, of course, that if we are, for emergency reasons of any, for the safety of the public or otherwise, if we can't go forward because of the uptick in COVID-19, well then that portion of the agreement that would otherwise be in effect is not enforceable. And so we'll kind of go as we need to. The dates you see, these are dates. July the 27th will be our first jury. This is a trial that will take place involving the defendant that's in our Brown County Jail and has been there for months. He's already pled guilty to continuous sexual assault of a child. So it's a very serious matter. He's in jail, punishment hearing. This will be a good one to begin. It's not going to be as lengthy, and we can manage it, I think, appropriately. And his case needs to be heard, because he's been a pretrial detainee. I've held him without bond essentially since his guilty plea, raised the bond up to accordingly. So that needs to take place for all concerned. Maybe they'll even reach an agreement now that if they see that I'm got a date, it's coming up, and we should know if there's going to be any agreements before we have to issue the summons for the people, which will be this week, Wednesday. So summonses are going out on the 8th. We did a trial run thanks to Matt, our IT man here. Matt Kriske has done an outstanding job. He has really gone above and beyond his normal duties to help us during this time. whether it meant all the Zoom business, the training with that. We've done, we had an in-person mock trial in the courtroom last week. We had people posing as different roles, and we put them up in the locations, make sure that they could be seen and be seen, heard, and so forth. And I can go into more detail with you about that because if you wish to have it. But the trial itself will take place here. That was what that dry run was for, to see, can we do this? We had a theoretical belief that it could work. We weren't sure it would work. Thanks to Matt's additional innovations and changes, and we overcame any obstacles, and so far so good. It will work. Now, it's not ideal, but what in life is. It's workable, it's doable, and it will be more cost-effective and security-wise, and it's the best option. So I had language in this contract. If we couldn't do that, the plan B would be trying the whole case at MIMS. We're not going to need to do that. So there was some language in the contract about if we had to by today, they would save those extra dates, and as long as I'll let them know today, we should try the whole thing there in the MIMS auditorium. But we're not going to need to do that. So we're looking at one day for the 27th, plus then we were going to do a test run over at MIMS to make sure their setup will work for us. That mainly it's the sound stuff and the videos and that kind of stuff. So that will be done, and Matt is instrumental in that as well because he knows their system, and so he will be involved with the running of the sound, and because we'll have to have microphones, and because we have to have social distancing. The prospective jurors will be all 6 feet apart. That's why we have to have a big rock call. And the court will be on the stage essentially. So that's what's going to take place on the Friday before the 27th. And that's going to be $600 for the typical full day. And that is going to be the first payment that we'll have to make is for that. And then you read the contract, you see. So it's nominal in terms of expense. And then we will pay as each event is needed. There may be juries that are canceled. There may be no need for all of these dates, but without the viability of going forward and locking them in, we lose the ability. So you'll see August 10, August 24, September 10, 21st of September, October the 5th, October 19, November 2nd, and December 7th. That's the rest of my year with jury trials. So that would be the Monday, that would be jury selection. And if it all works as I hope, then, and we'll learn, and there'll be improvements. You know, we fix what needs to be fixed, and we'll learn as we go forward. The OCA from Austin will send representatives down to watch how we do it, to learn, so they can give information to other courts around the state, because everybody's dealing with this. Everybody's struggling. How do we go forward and balance the needs for juries with the need to protect the populace? So anyway, unless there's questions, I won't go into any more with you right now. I would just urge that you approve it. And then if so, the county judge or his designee sign it, and then I'll get submitted to Mike. Mike had already signed one version of it, but he didn't have the additional change that we made at Shane's suggestion. So he'll need to sign it after we do, and then we'll have signed copies.
Quick question, the fund this is going to be paid from is the fund?
It's the county's obligation, but it's all, I tied it to COVID-19, so I don't know about the funds. That's your guys' bailiwick. Okay. And we'll have to do certain things. We're going to have our cleaning crew supplement over there. We're going to have our deputies help over there, because it's the county jury selection. So we'll have to have our staffs go over there that day. There'll be some, some things we have to work with. In addition, and at the same time, the courthouse is open here. Well, we've got to keep, safety here too. So it's going to mean all of us having to work together to make it happen. We need additional thermometer guns or whatever you call those things. I've made that request. I don't know. I think that Sergeant Watson has passed that on. Judge Lilly, you have that? I need 2 extra ones. I've ordered a wand for the security to use up there. That's been ordered. You know, that's because we won't move our walk-through metal detector, but we need to have the security because you've got to have all those things in place. We'll have masks, and I think we have those already in place. All of the prospective girls have to wear them. So those hand sanitizers and on and on and on. And then our 2 ladies that will be supplementing cleaning will be doing that. We're going to get the sleeves for the microphones so that they can be replaced every time somebody talks. You might want to consider that for your own. These are very cheap, but they protect it because in Mason County, folks all passed around this COVID-19 several months ago was because of a microphone that was shared by everybody. And so I think half the county officials were infected. And not, that's an exaggeration. What it was more people. I don't know what it was, but it was, I know the district clerk and others, I think some of the city staff all had that problem. So that, I mentioned that just because that's one of those things that could be overlooked. We want to make sure we don't. So anyway, unless you have questions, I can go into details with you, but that's the gist of it. And it will be we do have to have insurance policy furnished. So we just basically would add, we're not indemnifying the Howard Payne. That's something the county can't do. That's called an ultra virus act. But you can, we would have an obligation. We're going to be using it as the county facility. This is an auxiliary facility you guys have already designated as such. So it'll be essentially the courthouse down there that Monday when we're in session. And then we'll be back here. So if there is liability, if there's a problem because of, that there needs to be Howard Payne added to the county insurance policy, that kind of stuff.
I'll take care.
So, and I think Jennifer, maybe you've already talked to, the county PAC is not, who's got, you guys got insurance. So that just needs to be furnished to, in the normal way. So, unless there's questions, that's what I'm asking you to do, to approve it, to go forward, and then they'll send a bill. That was another thing I think I added after we talked about it on Friday, so that they will send a statement as we incur it, either each time we do it or on a monthly basis or what.
They'll send the bill by event.
Yeah, either by event or by month, whatever, like we may have 2 events a month. For example, right now, the August juries are more problematic at this point, but hopeful that we'll be able to go forward with at least one of them. But we'll see, because there's been since we began these negotiations, the Supreme Court, because of the uptick in other places, have prohibited jury trials except with permission, and which we've already gotten the permission for this one. I think I'll get permission for another one, and maybe even both. But it's without going into detail with you about that. Just know that just because we've got the dates contracted for doesn't mean we're going to go forward regardless. We'll do it only if all things are approved. So, any questions?
I'll entertain a motion.
Shane, are you okay with, I guess it's section 2 that was, added or
modified?
Modified.
Great.
Yeah, it's what we suggest, what you suggest.
Sure. Thank you. I didn't want to stop over here. Anybody else have questions?
In that case, I would move we approve the contract with Howard Payne University for court dates from July 27 through December of 2020.
Here we have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second it. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor? Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
You need to sign that now, or?
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great. I'll just give you, listen, I have several copies here. Let me give you like 4 copies. I had 3, so just go ahead and sign those. Sharon's got one if you want.
I'll just need to sign one once it's ready.
Let me have that one here and I'll have it signed up.
Thank you, Judge.
Sure, appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I'll get that back to you once Howard Payne signs there, and then is either just Lily or Jennifer got the insurance and forward that to Howard Payne. Yeah, just a copy of it. It's some kind of a statement that the insurance folks know. how to deal with that. Now, I appreciate it. Thank you all very much, and everybody stay safe.
Good luck.
Thank you, Judge Evans.
Yeah, well, I hope it works.
Be sure you give me a signed copy.
I will.
once it's finished.
I will, and I'll try to get Mike's signature, and I'm sure that
So
will
each
be.
one of these copies be my son.
Yes. If you want a signed copy back yourself, that way. That way, it is.
Lisa, you want to come on up? You'll be next.
Get mine. Joel's nose is not as big as mine.
I can get you custom made one.
Well, you know, hey, that's pretty special.
I know the lady, or a lady that's making those.
All right, that's good to know.
He wants just to stay.
Yeah, I just have a bail.
If she had some other material, I would.
That painting, you said that, you know?
You did. Where's that, blue and gold?
Oh, no, that's not right, no. But that's not bad either.
The last one.
Thank you very much. I'll get these back to you. And then there was another topic. You should be getting an envelope that's that came on the juvenile stuff. And so the fellow with Rite of Passage was waiting for me when I got here, and so you may get that on your desk later on.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. See you all later.
I want to skip down to, item number 7G and call Lisa Dick, the administrator of the Brown County Health Department, to give us an update on COVID.
Good morning. So, a lot of things have changed. I'm gonna try to do this with my mask on, but I think if you can't understand me, then I'll take it off. So, since we last spoke, which was 2 weeks ago, we went from 64 positives to today we're at 128 positives. So, we have done there have been 2 drive-through testing done. One was the first one, 216 people came through, and we started receiving results back this weekend, and I think there were 13 positives from that. We did one yesterday, and there were 236 people that were tested. So just some things that are concerning or changing that I want y'all to be aware of. One of those is that over this past week, we've had 3 deaths. And so all of those were none of them were nursing home patients like we've seen in the past. All of them were community members. And currently we have an additional nursing home facility that has positives. 3 of those are residents and 1 is an employee that we're aware of right now. There are changes in some of the testing that we're seeing come out. The regular PCR test that we've been used to receiving, and that is the main lab confirming test that's done across the state. And then we also see antigen and antibody tests, and I know there's some confusion about this, and so I just wanted y'all to be aware. Those will be counted as a probable test whenever we start reporting those out, which should be this afternoon. And that doesn't mean that you're not contagious and that we're not going to follow you. It is just has to do with the epidemiology side of it and how they categorize those. So what we're looking for is a positive test on those, and then also that there are some symptoms or there's a history of symptoms in recent history that make us know that you currently have that disease. So, because some of those could show antibodies from a previous illness. So we're looking for active illnesses whenever we're tracking. So that's why we want both of those things together. Okay. The third thing is that we're seeing delayed times and how quickly we're getting labs back. And so right now it's moving upward towards 7 to 10 days before we see those tests back. So that kind of affects how our community needs to react if they think that they're sick. And that they've had an exposure or that they have the symptoms for COVID, then we really would encourage them to stay home. So as the state has began to reopen up or has reopened up, I think we all can agree that we have seen an increase in cases here in Brown County. And I feel we're at a point where we have some choices to make. I feel that we can act like other communities and we will have the same results that they have. Some communities are a little bit more further along in the process of this pandemic than we are. And I don't want us to follow what we've seen happen there, which is continued cases and continued deaths. I don't think that it's the government's responsibility for us to control this, but I do think that it's an individual's responsibility. So I want to just encourage everyone to continue to social distance. If you can't social distance, then wear a mask when you're out in public. This mask protects you, not me. And so when we all protect each other, we have better outcomes. I encourage you to plan ahead, so that you don't have to be out in the public as much as possible. Just decrease that amount. So that may mean making lists and planning for meals and looking to see what your future is going to look like if you can't go out as often. If you are sick, don't go out, except to receive medical care. Don't hesitate to ask for help. We're all friends and neighbors here, and don't hesitate to step in and help where needed. And then those simple things like hand washing and hand sanitizing, those are still very important.
What was the number of active cases?
Over the weekend, that have been 35, and now we have 19 new cases from Saturday and Sunday. And so I know we had some people come off of monitoring, so it's going to be somewhere in the 30s probably. I don't have an exact number for that today.
Our deaths are 13.
Yes.
I mean, you're hospitalized at this time?
I think there were a couple hospitalized, and that's something else that has changed a little bit. I know that the number of available beds before we move to the second phase has increased. So now there are 10 ICU beds available. I think several times last week, between actual cases and pending cases, we were up around 7 a couple of times.
What were the ages of 3 deaths over the weekend, or the week?
So I know that there was a gentleman in his 60s and a woman in her 70s, and I'm not recalling that their age.
Thank you.
Seems like it was, the third one was a man in his fifties.
Thank you,
I think that's
so.
right. Yeah, I thought it was me. But, y'all stay on.
Before your microphone.
You know, there's been a lot of people have asked about the testing, which I think you're doing 250 at a time.
Close to, yeah, between, yeah.
Do you have to have symptoms to get tested, or can just anybody show up and get tested?
So the tests that they're, the drive-through testing, you do not have to have symptoms to be tested.
Okay.
So, but most of the tests that we would facilitate through the health department, then the requirement for us to send out to our lab would be that you have to have symptoms.
So the drive-through testing, you do not have.
You do not.
And you mentioned the difference between the, and I don't know what the term is, the regular test versus the antibody antigen test.
Yeah.
The drive-through, which test?
So previously, they have been the PCR, which is the gold standard type test for this. And so I need to check and see, but my understanding is that we'll be making a transition to maybe more of the antigen test.
Because there's a lot of confusion and a lot of questions about, I mean, I think there's a lot of people in the community who are wanting to take an antibody test. You know, everybody thinks they had it at some point in time.
Right.
You know, that's kind of everybody thinks they had it. A lot of people think they had it. And so, you know, I wouldn't want our testing to get clogged up by somebody who said, I was sick in December, and I want to run down there and get tested.
So the tests that they're doing in the draft group definitely don't show that.
Okay,
They aren't
that's-
gonna show the antibodies. There is a local physician that is doing some of the antibody tests, Dr. Booth's office.
Okay.
And so kind of we're not even sure what that shows. You could have had it and it not show up because we don't know how long your body keeps, that immunity. So it's kind of a question mark. We might do antigen tests for other things and we can see that you've had it for, and it's usually a long period of time. You could have had hepatitis or chickenpox but we just don't know how long the immunity for COVID-19 lasts.
So when people ask that, we need to tell them, don't go through the drive-through for an antibody test.
Yes, it's not an antibody
You need
test.
to contact your healthcare provider if you want an antibody test.
Yeah. That's a good point.
You have a question? Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye.
Y'all have a good day.
All right, I'm gonna skip to, since we're on the topic of COVID, I'm gonna skip to item number 7D. This is something real quick. Commissioner Shaw and I discussed, last week about, do we want to go ahead and add a third cleaning person since, we're gonna have all the jury trial and everything coming up. It's paid for out of the COVID fund. We have more than efficient amount of money to cover it. What we're thinking is just one for each board, so that,
I'd like to stress that, because when we talked about it, it sounded like a good idea to me.
Yeah.
We should do the math on the hours. We got two ladies, one come in 5 hours in the morning, one 5 at 8. Okay, you have one on each floor, we're gonna lose 3 hours a day on each floor. 5 hours.
well, that's why the third would be kind of a.
No, that's not, the third, that means we're gonna lose, and those girls get 10 hours. And the other day when that one first was started, I got here about 7:40. And she came pretty soon up to my floor, she came 2 more times before I left at 10:40.
Okay, so it's something you don't think we need?
I don't. I wish you would have called me and let me know, because I told, you know, we're gonna put it on the agenda last week, and, I told Amy, or Ken, not to put it on, I've done the math on that, so surely you can see that.
Yeah, I'm actually indifferent to it.
Okay.
I just wanna make sure that everything gets cleaned.
As far as COVID money, you know, we gotta find out what we can spend it for, but all of us commissioners lost our jail crew because of COVID. And brush is encroaching on our roads, we haven't been able to keep up with cutting it, and I'm strongly in favor of hiring some part-time help, put out with our jail deputies to do that, because that's a real problem.
Okay, let me see if I don't think that'll be a problem, and I'll give you an update. We have, they gave us 140,000, and we have another 500,000 we can draw down.
What are your work crews doing now?
My guys are keeping up the roads and doing them.
Oh,
We don't have work crews.
We have jailers, but
We don't have jail crews
We don't have jail crews.
because of COVID?
because of
Yeah.
COVID.
We
Yeah.
also do jail, you know, we got our jail deputy, and mine's been working just like a hand, going out patching, trimming brush, doing what he
So you
can.
still got your deputies, you still have your.
they're gonna start using those part-time, for cycle, they have to do this, screening for the.
Right.
Extra report,
So-
so I think they're already using it for screening now, somehow, here.
So you don't have your crew because the inmates aren't allowed to leave the jail because of COVID?
And they're also gonna start using our jail crew part-time, they're already rotating in and out for the, checking people coming out of the courthouse, and when they do the other one, they'll be able to do
That's
that.
not your jail crew.
I mean,
Jail
my jailer,
Deputy.
All right, so we're gonna pass, we're not gonna take any action on item number 7D, that's fine. So 7B is, Senior Chaplain Dave Fair. Dave, you want to come on up?
yes,
This will be real quick. Formal approval of the Brown County Chaplain Emergency Services Program and authorization for the creation of budget line item, in the Office of Emergency Management, and the approval and acceptance of a, donation of $150 from, I want to make sure to get this in there, Orbis Insurance Agency.
Jennifer, don't let me forget to give you money.
It goes to Ann.
Who goes to Ann? Okay, sorry.
Sir.
Okay, goes to somebody.
Yes, it goes to Ann.
Ready?
we have some remember donations.
We will, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning again. It's good to see you. We'll talk a little bit about the program Judge Lilly, right after he was elected, asked me to put together a protocol for a emergency management chaplaincy program. And the reason that it was put under emergency management was this. I've been to dozens of disasters. I've been to Haiti twice. I've been to Ground Zero. I've done 6 hurricanes. The point being is when there is a disaster, small or large, you've got ministers, preachers, you have folks coming out of the woodwork from all over the United States wanting to come and be part of the disaster. For a lot of them, unfortunately, it's a photo op, is what they're looking for. But we need a way to vet those people that want to come down, or those groups that want to come down. And we're working with Daryl with this. The key is that we don't want a loose cannon on the site of a disaster. So the concept is that we vet all these people, we help assign them where they need to be assigned, and give them proper credentials to be at the location. Now, there are 3 other chaplains besides myself. I'm sure you'll know these names probably. Tim Skaggs, he's the lead pastor of the Coggin Avenue Baptist Church. There is Emmanuel Jimenez, pastor for Cross Brownwood Church. And then there is Rick Phelps. He is community pastor for Victory Life Church. And I am with High Mesa Cowboy Church. So I added it together, just these chaplains, ministers, how many people they represent. There's about 1,000 people that these pastors have gained experience of pastoring over. I try to make this short, cut it down a little bit. I volunteer 20 to 30 hours a week, sometimes more. And one of the things that I do, you find a need and meet it. I catch the phones a lot. Somebody's gone for lunch, or somebody's on vacation or whatever. I'm trained to answer the phone, take the calls, route the messages where they need to go. Right now, we are training these new chaplains right now to FEMA courses, incident command courses, and Office of Emergency Management courses. They already have their ecclesiastical background. We don't want to mess with that. That's their faith tradition. But we want to teach them to do no further harm at a disaster or accident scene or whatever they might come up on. Just a couple of other things quickly, if I may. We talked about the venting. We pay everything you see me wearing, with the exception of this, is paid for out of my pocket. All the chaplains pay for all their own equipment. We do hold them to color and style so that everybody will look the same. And so from pants to boots to everything, everybody's spending money on themselves so they can volunteer for the county and in the community. I want to just run over this quickly. The Brown County Emergency Management Protocols were available, were creditable, accessible, and confidential. We're on duty 24/7, 365. Types of incidents that we might be responding to, or the emergency management chaplains can be, if requested, to serious accidents, industrial accidents, homicides, or suspicious deaths, unexpected natural deaths, infant deaths, barricaded subject, missing person, suicide, death notification, and many more. These are things that have happened to our residents in Brown County that we would be responding to. Would be dispatched through the police department based on protocols that they've asked for or what Daryl has called for. I won't go over the whole list, but you can see it. There's a whole list of training that we've either had or we have our new chaplains are taking. I want to mention that some of you may have known Lethal Gordon. She was a chaplain for a long time with the city, and Letha was killed in a horse accident about 2 weeks ago. And people are starting to make donations in lieu of flowers. And here is a check made out to Brown County for $150 from the Forbes Insurance Agency, Jamie and Richard Ember, and their employees. So that goes to Ann, right? Okay, that goes to Ann. Let's see if there's anything else that I needed to cover that was maybe the best thing would be to ask you if you have any questions, and let me respond to those if I could.
So there is some kind of protocol underneath emergency management for a chaplain service anyway, I believe.
It's a written protocol.
Yes. I'm sorry I didn't make copies this morning. I was cleaning some things up on it, so I wouldn't forget, and I failed to make additional copies. If you would like them, we'll certainly be happy to print them out and get you a copy of the protocol.
And make it clear, until y'all approve them today, hopefully, none of them have responded to any type of incident. We just been getting the program up and ready and getting the training done.
Correct.
So no, there has been no response yet. Hopefully after they get approved today, then they can begin doing that.
So you're gonna create this budget line, is that gonna be for the donation?
Yes, and I don't know if Brianna actually needs our permission to create a budget line or donations to him, or if you just have one.
He creates line
Okay.
items. You get the checks, we create
Great.
line items.
okay.
We just wanted to be able to track it under emergency management, because there'll be more donations coming.
Well, I know that Dave has responded, not on behalf of the county for years, he's done this kind of stuff.
About 30 years, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, I'm no new person to the county. This is my reserve deputy, honorably retired. I worked as a reserve for the Brown County Sheriff's Office for over 20 years. So I'm not new to the county and the way the county has to operate. So I've spent some 20 plus years as a volunteer reserve deputy for the Sheriff's Office.
Is this creating kind of liability for the county?
No, I've checked every TAC and they would be covered the same as our reserve deputies are.
So all of that, if this program isn't part of the emergency management coordinator, blah, blah, blah. So it's automatically built in that. I'm just clarifying.
Yes, there'll be, the creation is under the Office of Emergency Management.
And we answer to Daryl, we answer to the Director of Emergency Management.
Okay.
So, and I've checked with TAC and they'll be insured just the same as the reserve deputy is volunteering for the county.
That's gonna remain a volunteer situation.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's totally volunteer.
Well, we need to change this or add to this agenda item. It says, formal approval of Grant County Chaplain Emergency Service Program. Put volunteer in there somewhere.
Oh, so, well, we can include that.
It's not a paid position. There won't be employees of the county, and,
You want to put that in motion?
well, at least, yeah, I'm still thinking about it.
Okay.
Thinking about how to word it. But, anyway, there's certain criteria that volunteers have to meet before any county funds or taxpayer funds can be expended for a volunteer program. certain things have to be met. So, and I'm not real sure what that criteria is. I think the auditor has a better feel for that.
Whatever it is, we'll make sure they meet it.
Well, yeah. So, and I don't mind establishing a volunteer chaplains organization or, whatever, under the emergency management, that's fine. And
I'll second that. Oh,
I move
all right.
that this court establish a volunteer chaplain service, under the emergency management program in Brown County.
I would second that.
Any further discussion?
Appreciate you too.
Yes, sir.
All right, all in favor on that one? That carries. And then, I don't know about the line item, if you need to, I don't guess you need our permission to create a line item.
That's-
Well, I just need the court's permission to accept the funds.
Yeah, that was next, I just didn't know, so,
Yeah.
all right,
No,
so
once
he's,
you accept the funds, and then I gotta create a line.
okay, he's got a check for $150 and there's more coming, so of course, each time a check comes, just like the sheriff and his SWAT vehicle, we'll bring it in here and you can formally accept her.
So we're actually gonna have two actions on this one.
Right.
Okay. So I'd like a motion to accept the donation to the chaplain program for the insurance agency.
So,
Okay, we have a motion and a second, further discussion? All in favor? All right, thank you, I think that will conclude item number 7B. Thank you, Dave.
Okay, did we have another item?
I think that's it. Well, at the end, we're gonna discuss on 7H, the requirements for volunteers.
Okay,
So if you'll hang around for that.
sure, yes,
We wanna make sure we meet every, cross every T and dot every I.
exactly. Well, a lot of volunteer program, there's been, like say, the sheriff's office has had reserve program for years. PD's had reserve program, and so there's the volunteer concept and the meeting of the criteria has been in place for quite some time with these other volunteers. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so
So
much.
just hang around for us.
Sure, not going anywhere.
All right, item number 7C is on my shoulders, discussion and possible action approval regarding salaries for new personnel in the county judge's office. I have some personnel changes you're aware, I'm sure you're all aware of. I've hired as the emergency management coordinator, an extremely qualified man, Daryl Johnston. You want to stand up, Daryl? I don't know if all of you know Daryl or not, but I'll give you a little bit of his background. He had 40 years. How many years with Odessa?
32 with Odessa.
32, okay.
And 5 before service.
So 32 years, he retired as a battalion chief with the Odessa Fire Department, then 7 or 8 years with the Forest Service. And then he had almost 1 year here before they made the administrative change of chiefs even as the assistant chief of the fire department. New chief comes in and brings in his own assistant chief. So well qualified. Now, I want to look at each of you tonight and tell you the best thing about this man is he knows the FEMA program. He sat in that chair and he can log right on and he can get to make sure everything is submitted when it needs to be submitted. Get with your foreman and make sure that he's got all the information that he needs. So it was a fantastic, it was just a godsend that he was available. And he's agreed to take the job at whatever salary y'all provide. I told him what the minimum salary is. I didn't know because of his experience, y'all might want to start him higher. I told him not to count on that, but that was a possibility. And I've got the minimum salary here is 28 for emergency management. I think he's worth more than that, but I'll leave that up to y'all. And he understands all we have budgeted, so we might not be able to do anything more with that. 28.
Do you have an employee pension? Where you,
I don't. You know what? I need to get one of those. And I'll make sure it gets around to be signed.
I don't know, Andy, you have one? I gave some to Jennifer.
Oh, that's fantastic, because I would have no idea where to get them off the computer. I had to get help logging on Thursday. Yeah, if you have, that would be awesome. Or I need two, actually. Awesome, thank you. So anyway, I'll leave that up to y'all. He's been hired, he agreed to start at the 28th, but if y'all want to start him higher, that's up to you, but either way, just make a motion.
Well, I think he agreed to start at 28. I'd like the motion to start at 28.
Then you have to do a question. beginning salaries, so we got to kind of stick to our deal.
Daryl, if you don't mind working for that, maybe at budget time, they see the job that you've done, and, maybe they'll make some adjustments there. At the same time, also, for my court coordinator, I've hired Stephanie Uphold.
We need to vote on that one.
Do both at the same time.
Okay.
That's what they're starting. Good, you want to do one at a time? Because they're starting, both of them do minimum salary, so there's no changes or
How do you
anything.
spell her last name?
UPHOLD. And I have both Daryl and, Ms. Uphold's resume if you want to look at it. Okay, so we can do them at the same time, so I'll entertain a motion for Mr. Johnson.
I make motion here. Move the employment.
Motion, I'll second it. Any further discussion? That's for Daryl.
Beginning salary.
He's, in this motion, he's taking the job at the budgeted
Are
salary.
we doing them separate? Are we doing the motion separate? We are.
Yes, ma'am. So we have a motion and second, any further discussion on Chief Johnson? All right, all in favor? Chief?
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to say?
No, sir, not this time.
Okay. His telephone contact numbers will all remain the same, so. Okay, the second is, like I said, Stephanie Uphold. She's a graduate of Howard Payne University, has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, forensic science, and psychology. And she has also agreed to start at the beginning salary, and she'll be starting on the 20th.
What is that beginning salary?
29.
Who is it?
Stephanie Uphold. I just said it's Stephanie Uphold. Here's her resume.
She started winter.
Still laughing out?
29. No, I didn't know how to get a hold of these forms.
29.
Mr. Johnson started date is today.
When did you start? It was last Tuesday.
July 1.
You got one?
The one
And starting salary for Ms. Uphold when she starts on the 20th will be,
showed up to what I thought.
it's listed as 29.
That's what I got from, I think that's court administrator.
That's what I got from Ann.
Is that right?
When did you say?
Court administrator beginning salary, 29.
That's from our budget. That's from our budget.
Well, I didn't-
And I'll,
She
I'll,
looks nice.
all right, and I'll entertain a motion for Ms. Uphold also. And she, like I said, there's no
What is
change.
her beginning date?
20,
20th on a Saturday.
well,
I'm
she,
sorry. I'm wrong.
Johnson started July 1.
Monday.
July 1, I got it.
It's on a Monday.
We starting on
20.
that's in the middle of the pay period.
Well, I was just given notice of her job.
I understand.
I'm gonna fill these out. I don't want us to be waiting on more stuff.
One of them you gotta send back this way, Judge. Whichever one.
Uphold. Uphold.
We can't tell what we're getting to the end.
Is that 28 what we were paying Creed? Or we were paying him 34?
Some kind of deputies,
Creed was being paid 34.
yeah, 'cause he was,
Starting salaries.
he was
The starting salary was
Would
28.
y'all like to start in at what we have budgeted for Creed?
No.
we'd like to, but he had some certification in court investigator.
37.
All right.
I understand.
I think he's got like a start deputy salary, maybe.
And I'm also getting a package back from the budget as well. I'm signing those already, so I'll be getting that to you as soon as possible. Don't worry, some, no questions.
And it was on this way.
Now, vote on it.
The next 29,000, the next 28. Is that right?
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion for Ms. Uphold. There's nothing the board needs to do. I'll fill out the top part.
approve the hire of, where's the name again?
Stephanie Uphold.
Stephanie Uphold.
Upfold, upfold.
That one, is the beginning salary
I
of
thought it was
25,000.
fold too, but it's upfold.
Did y'all have a resume?
It's right here.
Oh, okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. It is Uphold. I would say Uphold also.
Yeah.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? And I'll get that form filled out for you properly. All right, item number 7, sure, let's see. 7E is a presentation possible action regarding approval of proposal from C&B Home and LLC / Early Glass and Brownwood Door, provide the protective glass like everybody else has been getting for the deputy sheriff entryway. I have a bid here for you somewhere.
I guess this is for the deputies taking temperatures and stuff.
Right, it's that front of the partition, it's the glass that go around the top of the partition. Like they have.
The rest of the,
Yes,
the new one,
and then,
we already approved all that.
well, we approved it for the previous, cabinet that was there, and they took that down, rebuilt it, and extended it. So they're just wanting the glass to be extended to the end of the current one. And,
Okay.
I swear to heavens, this is twice that I haven't been able to find. Anyway, the bid is 1,066 from Early Glass, 1,088 from Early Glass, and that was by far the cheapest bid. If y'all are interested, I know I'm rounded in here.
Was there 2 separate bids, one for C&D Horn
Yes,
and one for Early Glass and Brownwood Door,
there it is. Oh, okay, sorry about that.
but there were 2 separate bids.
There were, yes, ma'am. One was about $400 cheaper than the other.
Okay.
And if it's that same bid, we're gonna say that Early Glass.
Early Glass is the cheapest, and that's the one
Early
that
Glass is the only one that did that glass. That's the only one that did them.
If you go visit again, Mr. Lawrence.
and that will be paid for out of the COVID fund also.
Yeah.
So there's no cost to the county itself. So I'll entertain a motion to let the deputies.
That's fair.
Okay, I'll second that. Any further discussion?
I'm sorry, did you do that? I was giving them one.
I'll second. All in favor? Thank you, gentlemen. And thank you on behalf of the deputies. They're busy, but they wanted me to let you know they appreciate it very much.
Did you want to give me a copy of that bid?
I got it coming around.
Okay.
Here's that. But it doesn't have a name on it, you gotta put that on there.
I'll put them on there, but. Both bids are coming around? You already got the minutes over there? Somebody's got the minutes.
They went back.
Oh, they did? I got them, I'm sorry.
Oh, here it is. That's the one we're on.
Oh, this is the same people that own this.
I'm sorry.
That's the whole.
I wouldn't, I'll afford that too.
All right. All right, 7F is the burn ban. Do we want to take any action? Commissioner Joe Kelton. Burn ban still in effect?
I'm in favor of it staying in place.
Mr. Shaw,
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess I'll go against that.
No action on it. So the burn ban remains in effect.
That's correct.
For the media, if you want to make note of that out there for us. All right, then item number 7H is, I should have put that right back under the other, but I'm going by order of attention. 1, 2, 3, and 4 is Commissioner Worley and County Auditor Jennifer Robinson, presentation of possible action on first establishing, I got to read on this. First, establishing the public purpose of the purchase of a computer for non-employees of Broward County, and these are volunteers who donate their time for free. 2, establish by the court of any potential limitations regarding the use of such computer equipment and software and other IT-related items. And for that, Matt is here to help answer any questions by the volunteers and distribution of aforementioned equipment. All right, floor is yours.
I'll let Jennifer, address this.
Okay, so there's been a computer purchase for the chaplains. We've not in the past had computers for volunteers. And so my concern is with, as part of the cybersecurity is to establish, well, first of all, establish the public purpose for the volunteer to have a county-owned computer. And then once that is established, then policies and procedures related to the use of county computers by volunteers. As we all know, the cyber attacks have been extensive, to say the least. We've got to protect ourselves as far as all the cyber attacks. There is, some information, although most of our county information is public information, there are some items that are not public information. And so I feel like before a volunteer is issued a computer, we need a policy in place that establishes how that computer can be used, what accesses that computer can have, that person can have. So that was my concern as far as computers and IT.
And we don't have anything written. I don't think we have much written on that for the entire county. But
We
We do have
We
IT policy.
do have, and it's old, but we do have a written IT policy, including an acceptable use
And so we
policy.
probably ought to look it up maybe for the entire county.
Yes, that's actually in our action plan this year for our, for the network security audit that we just did for elections, is to
Matt,
update
on
those
that-
policies.
On that computer that we're using, from a security standpoint, there's nothing that I can get into other than my email. Is that
Yeah,
basically?
Matt, you want to explain to them?
Yeah, well, let me just step up here and speak to that for a second. And I'll let you know how we do this.
And then I can tell you what we use it for.
Of course, when I set up a computer, it's what we put on there is determined by the job position and when I determine what access they need to what things. For example, shared network resources, net data, all the things like that. On Dave's computer, all he has is access to email and the internet. That data is not even installed on there. He has no access. I control when I create user accounts. I control the access they have to the entire network from the server. And so as I create those for specific job positions or users, it's tailored to what they need to have access to, what they don't. And that is a discussion that's had with the department head and based on my own judgment between policy and what I know is to be secure and not secure. In his case, he has no access to net data, which is where all our information, our sensitive information is stored as net data. No access to that either at the net data level or the computer level. He doesn't have it installed. He has no access to shared network resources or anything that we use here within the county. He uses it for creating documents and email communications, and that's pretty much it.
Question?
That answered my security question, I didn't get
What funds were used to purchase your?
That came out of my budget. My computer, either computer supplies or computer maintenance, one or the other. And it counted just as a purchase of a computer for the county judge's office. That computer, it is a desktop, it stays in there, it does not leave. He is allowed use of it. It is not his, I mean, it is the county's. He is allowed use of it while he's here. It does not leave the person. And if he ever it decides to not be here anymore, then we'll take that computer and we will repurpose it somewhere else.
Does that answer your question?
That answered, yes, my security question. So now we just need to establish. what it's, I mean, I understand he's using it for documents, but I'm just, you know, establish public purpose.
By establishing the, volunteer chaplain service earlier,
That,
did
if that's,
Is that
if
suffice
that
for
suits
the
you,
public
if that
purpose?
suits, if that suits the court, that suits me. So,
I think that covers my concerns. Mr. Shaw? That cover your concern, whatever.
It's, her request was three-part, and the third was distribution of aforementioned equipment. I'm not sure.
it's already been distributed, so.
We need to formally approve that, you know, it's already been distributed, or,
Yeah, I don't know.
I wouldn't think so.
I would think so, it's already been done,
He's given,
and
well, if it was previous
Previously,
establishment, certain, satisfied your concerns,
right,
then I think we're good
There's no
without,
action.
without having any action on that.
And it was my intention in terms of distribution, I mean, my intention in pursuing that is that it was distributed to the judge's office, to stay in the judge's office.
it's not allowed.
The chaplain is allowed to use that computer, but it is, remains property of the county, in the county as well.
Does anyone want to make a motion?
well, no motion required.
No motion required?
Think there's any action needs to be taken?
So I guess we should thank Dave for answering the phone.
You sure helping me,
Stuff.
you sure helping me in the interim, yes.
Does,
no action,
No action.
has that,
You ready? Okay.
it'll be a next week.
So we'll go back up, since there's no action on 7-8, we'll go back up to 7-6. I'm sorry, item number 6, consideration approval of payment of bills. I'll have those in front of you. Thank you, Matt.
Included in the bills today, I just wanted to point out to the court that we have several lawsuits against the county. And included in the bills today are our insurance co-payments totaling $7,257.32.
And there's a handwritten $8,500 for North Lake, and that money's already been approved.
Gary's got the official,
Okay.
Gary's got the official, we didn't want to print 6 more trees.
All right, well, I just know that they finally got, they have, actually, had election, they kind of reestablished their fire department, the reason I just wouldn't release money to them, but we held it till they reestablish themselves. Got people back in office, treasurers and stuff. So, thank you for that.
well, I move we approve the, accounts payable as presented by the county auditor.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Gary, did you send the original room? All right, with that, I believe that covers our agenda. Kind of a long one today, so.
Let me just, I'm just curious about that copay that you referenced. Did they bill those by case or how?
Yes, they were billed, well, no, let me take it back. There was one was a handful of cases, all having to do with the sheriff's department. And then a separate having to, hang on, let me just.
Yeah, I was hoping maybe while she's doing that, sometime in the future, you could give us, we're going to executive session and you give us a briefing on what all those are
Yeah, that's what I was.
and the status of them.
Let's plan on doing that next.
Can you get everything you need right now?
Sure.
Actually, my math is wrong. We've got 3 in here without a purchase order. Have one, okay, let me just give them to you individually, okay?
Well, we can finish our meeting and she can give me that later and I'll present it.
Okay, is that all right?
Is that,
Yeah, let's do that.
that's fine, I mean, we've got them paid because a lot of them are already like from
So
earlier.
if we meet on the 13th, which is what I'm suggesting, at the end, we'll add an executive session so that Shane can update us on these. Not that it doesn't require us to do anything, but it'd be nice for all of us to know what's going on. So, 13th start up for y'all?
Yes, sir.
All right, so until the 13th, we are adjourned, we'll meet again this evening on July 13th at 9 a.m. Thank you, Ann. Carol, thank you.
Judge, do you need me to stay?
No, we're good. Well,